we had warning for the U.S. West Coast, so California, Oregon, Washington. We had a watch, so it was okay. Just know something's not going out there. Keep your eye on it. Nobody turned on any sirens or anything else. British Columbia, Alaska, because they're closer, had a warning, which is, and it still applies here. If you're on the Washington coast and you feel shaking, you are advised to get to higher ground. So you see those blue signs around. But I will show you right now why there's a history there in Kodiak and why we knew this was not going to be worse than it was.
But you can see clearly a tsunami signal. It was no doubt there was a tsunami.
It wasn't very noticeable, but the quake this morning did produce a tsunami in Kodiak.
After about 30 minutes, a tsunami comes in, and it's on the order of 5 centimeters. And so that 5 centimeters then translated into a wave in Kodiak.
About 10 inches as the waves pile up closer to shore and as far away as Crescent City, California.
And here's Crescent City, California tide gauge, and you can see very clearly the tsunami.
Eddie Bernard is one of the world's leading experts on tsunamis, and even after retiring from leading NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory in Seattle in 2011, he still consults with countries and industries trying to keep us safe from their devastating effects. Kodiak was wiped out in the Great Alaska Earthquake and Tsunami of 1964, a quake lasting some 8 minutes, a 9.2. It was a subduction zone earthquake, like the big earthquake threat we face here in the Northwest, where the ocean plate is forced under the North American continent. Last night's 7.9 could have been powerful enough to generate a large tsunami, but the nature of the quake was different. It wasn't on a fault line where the ocean floor is pushed under the continental plate, a similar situation we face here in Washington. But it was a side-slipping fault well out to sea on the ocean plate itself, called a strike slip. It was enough to move some water, but not to the degree that the subducting earthquake would have. The reason we know that is instruments like this on the ocean floor that are part of the DART buoy system. These precision instruments pick up the energy from a tsunami, transmit it to a buoy on the surface, to a satellite, and back to us. It's been in place for more than a decade.
But for people who live in Crescent City, who live on our coastline in Washington, Oregon, those DART buoys determined that it was a very small tsunami. So there was no need to evacuate people on our coastline. So that's where the distinction takes place.
Now, emergency managers here in Washington State were alerted that this was going on. But again, the decision was not to trigger a siren, as we talked about earlier, because this had not reached the warning, but they are prepared to reach a warning. So everything here worked pretty well.
Why all the attention on Crescent City when Grays Harbor is so much closer to Kodiak?
Crescent City is sort of got this crazy ocean bottom, what they call bathymetry outside, that tends to take stuff and concentrate it. So they were hit pretty badly in 1964. If you remember, a lot of people tell those tales. Even in Tohoku, where we really didn't have much of a tsunami here, they had some flooding and inundation in Crescent City in 2011.
Okay, good to know that those instruments are out there for us.
The instruments are out there.
Okay, thanks, Glenn.